So then we are back with more understandings on the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. As we read it in Yeshayahu, we establish then other layers related with this time of the restoration period, and then this topic relates with the merchants of the earth. Let's then make an evaluation of the situation from Revelation or Galah. In the previous video, it was explained regarding then Yeshayahu the 23rd chapter, and then the weighty decisions of the merchants. Let's then understand a factor. During this time, where then the holy cities are returning and the stick of authority of the Ishmaelites must also return, what is then the evidence, the absolute evidence of these merchants? You find in Revelation the 8th chapter. So then, by reading these, we then establish a very important information regarding the third part of the ships found in the 9th verse of the 8th chapter. We are explaining situations regarding then in the future. We are reading sections of the future yet. A section of the planet where then most of the ships are at, because of the trade going on, obviously with the China and the friends of China in India, and whatsoever we understand of traders, or then people doing trade, we understand governments are no longer important. But what is important is then the trustworthy side of the teachings of the Ishmaelites. They deserve, as we can understand from the holy instructions, what they used to have during the time of Ibrahim and then the first Ishmaelites. But let's then make sure we understand. 8th chapter explains then the explosion of the atomic bombs. As we are reading sections of the future, you find in the 9th verse, then the third part of then the ships were destroyed. China has done it again because of the situation going on with the world's market, and US manipulating as much as they can of the market of the world. Goes up and down and never is stable. The economy is not doing so nicely. China has done it again, and then they want to get rid of the USD. They had enough of it, and even in Paris, as the leaders are gathering themselves and speaking of Iran and Iraq mostly, then we find the situation very true when we compare with then the merchants. Firstly, you find many countries joining up themselves, and then the older roots that those merchants of old used to have and used then to do trade with, they are returning. China then in Paris has decided to substitute the USD for the Chinese yen. Very wise move of China. And this absolutely gives Scotland, a nation, we should say, that is absolutely having a great future apart from Great Britain. Why do we say this? Because China must become universal. The system of China must be in every country. Because the first transition is via the Chinese system. Thus we can understand the oil that Scotland has and the gas can be instantly made a deal then with China. This should give them some time for restructuring and then obviously joining up with the Chinese and then the friends of China in building up armed forces, at least the basics of it, and then thinking of their future. Because making a deal with China is the best security of the future. Because we'll find when you read the Tsayelic lineage instructions, you understand very precisely. Then the East is then the new trade system. Not only this, but then gives the other nations, the other areas of the world, the strength to come out of this period of time where the squandering of money was very typical, mostly wasted in wars. The situation with China is very stable. China already holds 57% of the world's market. London, for instance, has the Chinese yen exchange. So then the situation with Scotland is not so complicated. But they are coming out of centuries of joining with Great Britain, but then the future of Scotland is very secure. They are very smart people. They understand what the world then is doing, and mostly China with this new move of them removing the USD. It is very advantageous for them. So when we read Galah, what do we understand of the merchants? You find in the 8th chapter, and then later on, roughly on the 20th and before, you find layers of understanding related with the merchants of the earth. As then governments are becoming secondary, then the people with simple computers and a bit of money can start investing and being part of this new system. This should give us a whole lot more confidence. Why? Because the number of merchants must increase tremendously. If you think there are lots of merchants in the earth, yet it's not even as near of what Yohanan saw during his time of duty in this earth. He saw ships everywhere. And as people, they receive more from this system, the more they invest, the more they receive, the more they send, the more they receive, the more they can invest, thus multiplying the number of merchants of this earth. So then, should Scotland be afraid of the move? Absolutely not, because they already have a customer for their oil and gas. Should they be concerned with what kind of a money they should use? They can mint their own. Nowadays, it's not complicated, these situations. But most importantly is linking up Scotland with China and the friends of China, and investing in infrastructure and becoming a solid customer. This should give them a peace of mind, because we read, we know the information is on revelation. Since we understand the merchants of the earth, they have the authority, because in the previous video was then read 23rd chapter of Yeshayahu, and the importance of the answers of those merchants We're not speaking of governments, we're speaking of private merchants. They have the say-so. And they are returning, and they are very productive, very industrial. So then, governments, they understand they are in trouble. But we must understand the holy instructions and stick of what it says, because it is truly important. Very smart move from the Chinese government, and their output will tremendously be multiplied by numbers they cannot even at the moment count. The world is awaiting for more moves of China. So then, please stay tuned. Much more coming up.